Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. James Garner, named the meanest actors of Hollywood's best time. James Garner was born James Scott Bumgar on April 7, 1928 in Norman, Oklahoma. He grew up during the Great Depression when times were really hard and his life wasn't easy. His mom died when he was only 5 years old, and his dad, who put down carpets for work, had a tough time raising James and his two older brothers by himself. After moving around a lot and having problems with his stepmother, Garner left home when he was 14 and got different jobs to take care of himself. These hard times helped make him strong and kept him real and down to earth, which people loved about him. When he acted on TV and in movies, Garner's way to Hollywood wasn't normal at all. After working on ships in the U.S. Merchant Marine and the National Guard, he fought in the Korean War where he got hurt twice and got 2 Purple Hearts for being brave. These tough times taught him to work hard and stay humble, which helped him play soldiers, cowboys, and regular guys who had to fight hard to win. When he came back from the war, he started acting almost by accident. A friend told him to try acting in commercials, and his good looks and friendly way of talking got him jobs quickly. He learned acting at the famous Pasadena Playhouse, and soon Warner Brothers noticed him. Garner's big break came in 1957 when he got the part of Brett Maverick in the amazing TV show Maverick. Unlike other cowboy heroes who used guns and were tough, Garner's Maverick was a charming guy who didn't like to fight, and was a card player who used his brain and cleverness to get out of trouble. The part was perfect for him and people loved watching a cowboy hero who was funnier and more like a regular person. Maverick made Garner famous and helped change cowboy shows by making them funny and smart. He left the show in 1960 because of money, problems with his contract, but he had already become a TV star that people would never forget. During the 1960s, Garner started making movies and did really well. The movies he made during this time showed how good he was at different kinds of acting and how much people liked him. He was really good in the hit World War II movie, The Great Escape in 1963, acting alongside famous actors like Steve McQueen. He also showed he was funny in romantic comedies like Move Over, Darling in 1963, acting with Doris Day, and The Thrill of It All in 1963. In Support Your Local Sheriff in 1969, he made fun of his Maverick character, showing again how good he was at timing jokes and mixing comedy with action. Garner was never stuck playing just one type of character. He could easily act in romance, war, funny, and serious movies. In the 1970s, Garner came back to TV in a big way with The Rockford Files from 1974 to 1980, a detective show that became one of the most important shows of that time. As Jim Rockford, a private detective who was smart with words and didn't like fighting, Garner made the character feel like a regular person anyone could relate to. Rockford, just like Maverick, wasn't a superhero. He got beat up, didn't have much money, and used his brain instead of weapons. The show got great reviews and Garner won a Primetime Emmy Award for Best Lead Actor in a Drama Series in 1977. The hard physical work of the role hurt Garner's body, especially because he did his own stunts, which gave him back and knee problems. That lasted for years. But he still loved the character and the show's impact on people. Garner kept working a lot in the 1980s and 1990s, appearing in many different movies and TV movies. He got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor for his beautiful performance in Murphy's Romance in 1985 with Sally Field. The movie let Garner show a gentle, sweet kind of romantic charm, and it made sure everyone knew he was one of the most respected and loved actors of his time. Later roles, including Space Cowboys in 2000, Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood in 2002, and The Notebook in 2004, introduced him to young people who hadn't seen his older movies. In The Notebook, Garner played the older version of Ryan Gosling's character, giving a powerful, emotional performance that became one of the movie's most memorable and touching parts. Away from cameras, James Garner was known for being honest, humble, and fighting for fairness in the movie business. He wasn't scared to stand up to movie studios and bosses when he felt they treated him badly, even taking Warner Brothers to court in the early 1960s for breaking their contract and winning. He didn't like Hollywood's fake attitudes and wanted to keep his personal life private. Garner also cared about politics and helping people, supporting civil rights and helping veterans. His book, The Garner Files, published in 2011, shared honest thoughts about his life and career, and people praised it for being truthful and funny. Even though lots of people loved him as an actor, and he seemed friendly and easy to talk to both on and off screen, James Garner was known by his closest friends as a simple and normal man who kept his private life very important to him. Even though he seemed charming and open when people could see him, Garner made a clear line between his Hollywood image and his very personal world, wanting to keep his family life away from photographers and reporters. Friends and people he worked with often talked about how humble he was and how little being famous seemed to change him. He was easy to approach, kind, and well-liked by other actors, but he never tried to get attention when he wasn't working. Unlike many famous people of his time, he didn't try to get newspapers to write about his personal life and was known to stay away from Hollywood's party scene because he wanted to spend quiet time with the people he loved. Garner's love life was also quiet, but lasted a long time. He was married only one time in his life to Lois Josephine Fleshman Clark, a woman he met at a party in 1956. Their quick romance was different from most Hollywood relationships. Just 14 days after meeting, they couldn't stay apart, and on August 17, 1956, they got married. Garner happily remembered that time, saying, "We went to dinner every night for 14 nights. I was just absolutely crazy about her." This quick but heartfelt decision started a marriage that would last almost 60 years. In his typical dry and funny way, Garner once compared marriage to being in the army. Marriage is like the army. Everyone complains, but you'd be surprised at how many people sign up again. His jokes often hid how deep his commitment was, but it was clear to people around him that he really valued loyalty, stability, and love. Lois, who was Jewish, kept her faith during their whole marriage, which showed their respect for each other and ability to work out their differences. When Garner married Lois, he also became like a father to her daughter Kimberly from her first marriage. At that time, Kimberly was only 9 years old and getting better from a bad case of polio, a disease that hurt many young kids emotionally and physically. Garner became a stepfather with kindness and care, helping the child during a scary time in her life. Together, James and Lois had one daughter of their own, Greta She Garner, who was born on January 4, 1958. She became the light of Garner's life, and he stayed a loving father throughout his years, often putting his family first instead of Hollywood demands. Even though he was busy acting, Garner made sure to better for his daughter's life, building a close and loving relationship with her that would last for many years. The Garners' long marriage wasn't always easy. Like many couples, they had times when they lived apart, but unlike many famous marriages, they got through the hard times and stayed together until James Garner died in 2014. Their first separation happened in 1970 and lasted about 3 months. They got back together quickly, promising again to stay committed to each other. A second and longer separation started in 1979. During this time, Garner found himself needing space not from his wife, but from the huge pressure from his work. He spent his days going back and forth between Canada and a rented house in California's San Fernando Valley, going away by himself to get better from years of physical and emotional stress. Garner made it clear that these separations weren't because of marriage problems, but because of the never-ending stress of his acting career. At that time, he was working really long hours on The Rockford Files, a TV series where he appeared in almost every scene. The constant filming schedule hurt his body. Garner had chronic pain, especially in his knees because of arthritis. Also, he had a lot of pressure from studio bosses, which made his stress worse. All of these problems led him to leave the series in 1979, saying he desperately needed to focus on his own health and feeling good. "I simply needed to spend time alone to get better," he said in interviews years later, honestly admitting the cost of keeping up his demanding career. Finally, the couple got back together in September 1981, showing again how strong their bond was. Their ability to get through personal and work problems without letting them destroy their commitment stands as a rare example of strength and loyalty in the entertainment business. James Garner's life, while lived mostly where people could see him, was built on very personal values: love, loyalty, and quiet strength. His marriage to Lois, his dedication to his children, and his insistence on keeping a private life, even when he was most famous, said a lot about the man behind the celebrity. James Garner, the beloved star of television and movies, best known for his famous roles in Maverick and The Rockford Files, was widely respected not only for his talent and charm, but also for his honesty and speaking up in a business where staying quiet was often safer than telling the truth. Throughout his many years of working, Garner worked alongside some of the most legendary people in Hollywood, many of whom have been made into myth's ace examples of glamour and grace. But behind the bright spotlight of Hollywood's golden age, Garner saw with his own eyes a darker reality: the cruelty, corruption, and even evil that some actors showed when cameras weren't rolling. While Garner was never one to start trouble, he also wasn't one to make the truth sound better than it was. In interviews, his book, The Garner Files, and private conversations told by friends and people he worked with, Garner sometimes showed the truth about them in personalities and disturbing behaviors that haunted the back areas and sound stages of Hollywood's most celebrated time. Among those Garner reportedly thought were the most unpleasant, or in his words, evil, were actors whose fame hid deeply flawed, even dangerous characters. He spoke with special hate for those who used power without consequences, treated crew members and fellow performers badly, or hurt people behind the scenes. 1. Charles Boyer, manipulative and cold. Though known for his smooth personality and dramatic roles in classics like Gaslight and Algiers, Charles Boyer was someone Garner is said to have described as manipulative and emotionally cold in real life. Garner reportedly found Boyer to be calculating in his relationships and dismissive toward those he thought were beneath him in the Hollywood pecking order. While Boyer's performances amazed millions, Garner found his real-life behavior to be scarily emotionless, far from the charming gentleman the public loved. 2. Steve McQueen, the king of cool and cruelty. Garner's documented fight with Steve McQueen is one of the most notable examples of his dislike for a fellow actor. While McQueen was celebrated for his rugged charm and magnetic screen presence, Garner saw him as deeply insecure and ruthless. According to Garner, McQueen frequently undermined co-stars, manipulated directors, and obsessed over keeping the spotlight at all costs. In the Garner files, he described McQueen as an insecure little jerk who could be spiteful and even dangerous to those he viewed as competition. Garner's anger came not from jealousy, but from watching McQueen repeatedly sabotage productions and personal relationships. 3. Joan Crawford, a star with a savage streak. Though Garner did not work closely with Joan Crawford, he knew about her reputation, and like many, he was disturbed by what he heard. Crawford, made famous in movies like Mildred Pierce, carried herself with grandeur, but was known for being a tyrant on set, emotionally abusive to those around her, and impossibly demanding. Garner believed that fame had hardened Crawford to the point of cruelty, and he viewed her interactions with co-stars and crew as showing a toxic form of stardom. He privately said that Crawford used power like a weapon, using her status to intimidate and control others. 4. Robert Mitchum, brilliant but brutal. Garner acknowledged Robert Mitchum as a gifted actor, but also hinted at a darker side that made working with him a difficult experience. Mitchum, known for his tough guy roles in noir classics, had a reputation for being volatile, frequently clashing with directors and harboring a dislike for authority. Garner viewed him as someone who enjoyed rebellion, not as a matter of principle, but out of pure stubbornness. He admired Mitchum's talent, but remained wary of his unpredictable temperament, which he saw as destructive both on and off camera. 5. George C. Scott, a genius with a temper. While not always classified strictly within the Golden Age, George C. Scott embodied many of its intense, brooding personalities. Garner found Scott's temperament to be dangerously explosive. Despite his brilliance best seen in Patton, Scott's infamous outbursts, bullying tactics, and drinking made him, in Garner's view, a destructive force on set. Garner respected Scott's talent, but believed that his personal demons eclipsed his gifts, making him one of the most difficult and even frightening people he had ever worked with. What made James Garner's criticisms particularly striking was that they came from someone widely recognized as one of the most grounded and morally upright figures in Hollywood. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Garner avoided scandal, stayed married to the same woman for nearly 60 years, and maintained a principled approach to both life and work. He refused to participate in the Hollywood game of appeasing Gagos and playing politics. When Garner called someone evil, it was not out of meanness but out of a deep-seated disgust for injustice, cruelty, and abuse of power. Garner's assessments didn't come easily. He believed that while talent could open doors in Hollywood, character ultimately defined one's legacy. And for those he labeled the most evil of Hollywood's golden age, their public reputations, however shiny, could not hide the darkness he had seen behind the curtain. Throughout his long and physically demanding acting career, James Garner faced a number of serious health challenges, many of which came from his commitment to doing his own stunts. During the making of the Rockford Files in the 1970s, one of his most famous television roles, Garner began having big problems with his knees. The tough action scenes, car chases, and physical fights required for the role of private investigator Jim Rockford took a heavy toll on his body. As the series continued, the strain on his joints got worse, ultimately resulting in what he described as 6 or 7 knee operations during that time. These repeated surgeries were an attempt to fix the chronic pain and damage that built up over years of hard use. Garner's dedication to the role was both admirable and physically costly. and the constant wear and tear became an ongoing issue for the rest of his life. By 2000, the pain in his knees had become so severe that he had a bilateral knee replacement surgery, an extensive and grueling procedure in which both knees were replaced. This marked a significant turning point in his ability to move and quality of life, though it did not completely eliminate the impact of the damage he had endured for decades. Earlier in his life, Garner had faced another serious health scare when on April 22, 1988, he had quintuple bypass heart surgery, the operation in which 5 of the major heart arteries are bypassed to restore proper blood flow to the heart, is typically reserved for the most critical heart cases and reflects the severity of his condition at the time. Despite the seriousness of the surgery, Garner's recovery was surprisingly quick and effective, showing his resilience. However, doctors strongly advised him to give up smoking, a habit he'd maintained for most of his life. According to his daughter, Garner, her father had started smoking at the shockingly young age of 12, and by adulthood, it had become deeply part of his lifestyle. The years of tobacco use had no doubt contributed to his heart problems. Although he initially resisted giving up cigarettes, Garner finally managed to quit smoking in 2005, an impressive if late step in improving his health after almost 7 decades of dependence. Despite his attempts to take better care of himself, Garner's health troubles continued. On May 11, 2008, he had emergency surgery following a severe stroke he had suffered 2 days earlier on May 9th. The incident was a significant medical emergency that made fans and the entertainment industry very worried. However, reports at the time were hopeful, stating that his prognosis was very positive. This was a hopeful sign that the stroke had not resulted in catastrophic damage. Nevertheless, it marked the beginning of a steady decline in his overall health, as strokes often leave lingering effects on mobility, speech, and thinking functions even after initial recovery. Over the following years, Garner remained largely out of the public eye, his appearances increasingly rare due to the aftereffects of the stroke and other ongoing health issues. On July 19, 2014, emergency services were called to his home in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles, where they discovered that James Garner had passed away. He was 86 years old at the time of his death. The official cause was a heart attack, medically known as a myocardial infarction, which was brought on by coronary artery disease, an ailment that had likely been developing for many years, perhaps made worse by his past smoking and other heart risks. Although Garner had been a towering figure in Hollywood for decades, his final years were marked by a noticeable retreat from public life as his health continued to get worse. His death came as a sorrowful but unsurprising moment for those close to him, as his condition had been in gradual decline since his 2008 stroke. Garner's passing marked the end of an era, but his legacy as an actor and a resilient individual continues to endure.